produce that. And we do like improvised live techno. And for that, I use the Octatrack and I use a modular. And the modular obviously is like a wild instrument that does a million different things, and a tiniest little tweak and it changes it completely. So for that, I'm generally creating a sequence improvised and then looping it into the Octatrack and keeping the loop running for a bit. It's just really powerful for that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that kind of explains the tech mostly. I've got a pretty standard reverb pedal, a guitar pedal, Big Sky, which is on the send and return on the Allen Heath as kind of a safety net. Like if I need to get out of something sort of quite suddenly, for example, not sure if that you could still hear that, but it gives you just a bit of a tail so you can take something out without it being sudden. The other pedal I've got is an auto boom compressor, which is in the master send and return on the mixer. So anything that goes through the mixer goes through that. That just really helps to like glue the mix together, make it sound nice. It's super useful, especially for live when you're playing in sort of different rooms and different environments. You're not necessarily as aware of how the sound is going to be. So if you can just keep your levels sort of contained with something, it's really helpful. So I wouldn't be without that. Yeah, that's kind of covered it. Is anyone got any questions at this point before I move on? Yeah, let me see if anyone in the chat or yourself. Yeah, so in terms of how long it's taken me to sort of get to this point with it, I'd say it's been about 3 years, maybe a little bit longer, of like really trial and error, like buying machines, selling machines, testing them out, trying to figure out like what works for me. And I think this is what's really important about building a setup like this, is it's very personal. Everyone has their own way of approaching how they make music, and their music is different, right? So the way you're going to perform it is going to be quite a personal journey for yourself. So I'd say like, yeah, 3 years of really like trying to figure this out, and like so much of the time has been almost like theory, like working it out and trying to understand how to build it. And yeah, like I said, like this current version of it, I've approached it from a design system point of view rather than like here's a sequence of songs that I've written, so to speak, because it just gives me that space to improvise. So yeah, I'd say a good 3 years of just testing it, really.
I've got 2 questions from the chat. So the first is from Martin, and he wants to know a little more about how you separate the tracks into stems and parts and the volume level of those stems.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so in terms of like how I would sort of do the, I guess like the pseudo mix down within the machines is an interesting question actually. So gain staging is really important in this, and you have to tame your levels. So with each of the separate tracks on the machines, they have quite a few volume controls on these. There's different places where you can control how loud it is. So I try and keep them sort of turned down to maybe 2/3 on the main one, and then using the actual like sample volume or the synth track volume to sort of control the levels. I try and keep it quite even, like the compressor helps with that, and keeping those levels set to the same thing helps with that. And then basically just spending time with the patterns, like I say, like because it's not fully improvised on the spot, and I will spend quite a bit of time almost like writing the tracks on my headphones and just making sure everything's balanced. And then literally spending like an hour just like I was showing a minute ago, like flicking between them really quickly just to make sure that it feels right, like sort of put the faders back up. So yeah, like just literally going through it really fast and making sure that nothing really stands out. If one pattern feels like it's like a bit overbearing or too quiet, then I can adjust that. But yeah, that kind of helps just to go through it and get an overall idea of how it all sounds together. So yeah, and there was.
So Blue Party Hat 99 has asked two questions, so I'm going to ask them both. What inspired the move to live, and have you experienced any issues with playing a live set? How did you overcome that issue?
The move to live, okay, yeah. So I've been DJing for maybe 15 years. I can't remember exactly. A long enough time, and I love it, obviously. But as I was going through my journey of production, I found that there was a point where I was moving towards using hardware more than using software. The reason for that is for my day job, I spend long hours in front of a computer, and when I was sort of finishing my day and coming to the time where I wanted to be creative and write some music, sitting in the same chair, looking at the same screen with the same mouse and keyboard was sort of, I couldn't be creative. So I started buying a few bits of kit and playing around with them, really enjoyed it. When I bought my first Electron machine, was the first machine that I really gelled with the workflow, and it sort of made me realize like I can make music and kind of play and perform with it as I go, and that inspired me a lot actually. So within owning it for a month, I was already trying to like make little sets and sort of play around with them, like nothing impressive, but it was just fun to sort of do. So I was like, great, yeah, okay. I started buying more of them, and the more I got, the more I realized I could kind of put it together to be a live set. And I guess over the course of, like I say, like maybe 3 years, the pull towards doing that has been more powerful for me, and I just kind of have this like want and need to do it as a creative outlet as well as making music. It's sort of like it's become that. So it's been an interesting journey, and yeah, here we are today.
Have you experienced any issues when playing a live set? How did you overcome the issue?
So I haven't played a live set in a club yet. That hasn't happened, but I've done quite a few videos and stuff. I mean, there's always issues, right? Like, there's always issues where there's a cable that somebody's forgotten, or like something stops working mid-set, or do you know what I mean? Like, tech issues are probably the biggest killer, and you kind of just have to like do your best to adapt and overcome it in the situation that you've got. Like, can you get a cable from somewhere? Can you make it work? There's moments where maybe like, so I guess something that you can control to an extent is like, if you make like a mistake or something goes wrong with the machine that is your fault when you're performing, that can be something that really derails you, and I think is worth talking about, because it's like, we think that if we make a little mistake and something doesn't go the way we imagined it to when we're performing like this, it's the worst thing in the whole world, and like the world's going to end, literally, like everyone hates me. But actually, no one cares. No one can probably even hear it except you. And the best thing is just to keep going, and just carry on with the performance. If you allow it to get into your head, then you'll start making more mistakes, and that's when you'll kind of spiral out of control, and it won't go well. And I've had, I've recorded this stuff in my studio like for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and I know that like for the first few years I'd struggle to do 15 minutes or 30 minutes without like making a mistake and just throwing my headphones down and being like, nah, that's it, it's rubbish. Like, it took me a while to realize you just have to plow through and be like, right, if I'm going to do an hour, I'm going to record an hour, and that's what I'm aiming to do, mistakes or no mistakes, So yeah, hopefully that kind of answers the question. Is that all good for now? All right, cool. So what I want to sort of talk about now, which is an important part of it, is the sort of how would you film it and present it on social media. Now, like, it's an important part of it these days, like whether we like it or not. So when I was sort of getting started on this journey and creating these sort of mini jams, when I was first buying hardware, I started filming it and putting it up on my Instagram, and it got a really nice reaction, and it was sort of like people seemed to really enjoy it. So I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to keep doing this. And a couple of times I've had like tracks signed that I've just put jams up on Instagram. People have like, I want that for the label, finished it, and it's, yeah. So I thought it'd be worth sort of sharing that approach and sort of how I've figured out how to do it, so to speak. So it's really simple, if I'm honest. Like, it's not that complicated. You set up your kit, whatever that may be, whatever you're going to use. It could be, it could be anything. Film it on your phone, literally. Like I use one of these, which is called a small rig. It's like a little mini, mic stand type thing, I guess. It's really flexible. It's got a great little set of jaws that you can just attach to anything. I usually clip it onto my window or wardrobe or something. If you're like me and you haven't got a massive space for your studio, it's really useful. But you could just use a tripod or a mic stand or whatever you've got, as long as you've got one of these little phone attachments, so you can clip your phone in it and film it. I got all this stuff off Amazon. It wasn't expensive. So yeah, basically, you just set this up, set your phone up. I'll show you. I mean, I'll run through it and I'll do it. I've got something to clip it to. Then just chuck your phone in it. Simple as that, really. And when you're filming it, you want good lighting. So I use daylight. Basically, I have a window in my studio, film during the day, so it's nice and bright. You want it to be bright because, I mean, I don't know about TikTok or anything else. I use Instagram. The algorithm likes bright video, so bright video. Feature yourself in it as much as you can, whether it's your hands doing it or as much of you as possible is usually better. And just one fixed camera angle. Try not to move the camera around too much or have different angles and start getting complicated with the editing, because again, the algorithm just likes a simple thing. Yeah, I don't make the rules. And then just film yourself for however long. Obviously 60 seconds are usually the best, or less. People probably watch it for 6 seconds or something, I don't know, but it's 60-second clips. I'll generally record half an hour or 20 minutes and then stick that in the computer and sort of choose the bits that I like the best. You can use any editing software. There's loads out there. I use Adobe stuff because that's what I do for work, but and then just basically matching up the audio. So I'll record everything that comes out of the mixer into Ableton, and then I'll record on my phone. I've got a camera, but I don't even use it. I bought it to do this, and I end up using my phone because it's actually better. It's one of those, isn't it? Yeah, so the video from the phone, the audio in Ableton, sort of match them up in the editing software, and then just cut little 60-second clips out. If you film yourself doing a half-hour jam, you've got a month's worth of content. Realistically, it's that easy. So it's worth doing. And one thing I'll say that has helped me doing this is every time you have a jam, every time you practice, always record it. Always. Even if you don't film it, always record it, because you can listen back, you can hear things that may have gone wrong, you can really learn a lot just from listening back to yourself and being self-critical. Not to the point of hating what you've done, but just analysing it from a level of what can I do better? And the same with the video as well. The video really helps you see what you're doing and sort of understand where you might be. I need to be quicker doing that. I need to get my timing better. Do you know what I mean? Those kind of things are really important. So highly recommend it, to be honest. Cool. Is there any other questions at all in the chat? Just play another little bit of the performance. Okay, cool. That's all good.
I was going to say, related to that, is there anything you're saying that you haven't really taken to a club yet, but if you were to get booked, would there be anything in the setup that would change, or are you fine? Is this going to be the setup for the foreseeable?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, if I was to take this and play out in a club, which I'm intending to do, it is club ready. The way I've set it up is ready to go. As I say, I've been working on this for sort of 3 years now, so it's been in my mind the entire time. Like, how do I make it small enough to travel with? Is very, very important. You know, I can fit this mostly in a bag, and it sort of I can bring it on a plane and stuff like that. So that's super important. The DJ mixer, incorporating the DJ mixer means that like that can be on my tech rider. So anywhere I play, 9 times out of 10 they'll have that. So I haven't got to bring it with me, and just plug everything in and go. So yeah, I would take this setup exactly as it is and just go. And yeah, that is my intention to start playing out in clubs soon. It's just been like making sure that I feel comfortable, confident and ready to do it. And it's taken quite a few years to get to that point of just literally practicing over and over again. It's like when you're learning to play an instrument or DJ or anything, it's the same sort of thing. Like there's a long journey involved in not just you being good enough to do it, but feeling confident enough to actually stand up and do it. Because without a doubt, as soon as that sound system starts playing and you do something, you're going to be a bag of nerves. Like, so yeah, that's yeah, exactly like this basically. Okay, great, good. The Digitact. Sorry, my favourite bit of kit in the setup is the Digitact. It's one of the ones I've had the longest. It's amazing. It's a sampler, so I use a lot of sounds that I've created in the studio on there. You can link it to like Loop Cloud, you know, the sample software. It's got like a integration set up now where you can like plug it in with a USB and you can just audition samples in Loop Cloud and drop them straight into it, similar to like Splice, if anyone's used that before. I don't do that. I create a lot of my samples myself, but it's just such a flexible machine. It's really fun to play with. And you can like chop loops and breaks and stuff on it now as well. So yeah, that's my favorite machine, like without a question. Okay, yeah. So transitions is an interesting one. I'll explain that. I'll demo some of them because it's one of the things that actually took me the longest to do. Let me just get a pattern up quickly. So if I go, yeah. So transitions, like part of the reason why I designed the setup the way I did is because transitions can be so difficult. When you're DJing, you've got 1 track, 2 track, and you can mix between the two. I tried a similar setup with this, doing that exact thing. So this would be 1 track, and I'd create the whole track on it, and this one would be the other track, and I would mix them DJ style on the mixer. However, with like, if I had two identical machines, it would probably make more sense. But having like one as a synth and one as a sampler, the sound was changing dramatically between tracks, so it didn't have a consistency. And one of the things you kind of want, or at least I did, from playing a live set, is that consistent sound. So it's just uniquely my sound. So the way I'm sort of doing it now is kind of like I was explaining earlier, with the way that the patterns are interchangeable. I can change patterns on one machine and it will still kind of work, and I'll use effects to transition. So like for an example, so I'm playing this, which is kind of like a breakbeat pattern. And say if I want to go to another pattern, which is like a 4/4, for example, one of the ways in which I can do it is I can basically effects, change pattern on that machine, come back in with the filter, and change the kick. For me, the kick is always the sub level, it's always the bass, so that I know where I'm at, wherever, and I can change to a 4/4 or a breakbeat or whatever, and that's always going to be my low end, so it will have the most impact when you change it. So I've sort of set that up. I've got one pattern changed. I can bring in some more sounds in that one. Start to bring them out of that one. And again, it's like using the effects really helps because it creates like a little fill or a moment. So change again. Now I've switched patterns. So we're in a different track, effectively. That's one way of doing it. That tends to work the best. It takes a little bit of practice to figure out, but I quite like doing it that way. The other way, if I go back to that sort of breakbeat pattern again, so just do the drums. So the other way would be looping, which sometimes it can be a little bit messier, but it can work. So as I said, when I loop on the octave track, I can change the pattern of the sample. It will take a section, like a bar or 2 bars, and then play it back to me. So when I move the crossfader across, it will be playing the loop version rather than the normal version. And I can change the sequence of that. So if I just loop the sample now, I'll cut the volume of that so you can hear it. So that's playing normally. That's my looped version. So if I leave it just playing, you can't hear a difference. It's exactly the same. But if I change the sequence, I've got a 4/4 now. So assuming I'm playing and I want to go into 4/4 by doing that, I'll loop it, take this one out, and then I've changed pattern. So to get out of this now, because if I go out of the loop, I'm back in the same track. So I can chop, or I can change pattern. So now on that one I've changed, on this one I've changed. Just kind of play around with it like that. Again, like there's a million ways you can do it, and whatever setup you're using, however you're approaching your setup, you'll have different ways of transitioning. This is kind of the ways that I've found that work best for me.
How do you determine the order of the tracks, and how do you add new bits as you make them?
Okay, so how do I determine the order? I kind of make it up. That's sort of part of the improvised aspect of it. I've got 16 patterns per set on each of the machines. Well, so as I said before, like pattern one, they're the same track. So it's 16 tracks. Let's think of it like that. I can play through however I want. I've organized them into like drum patterns. So I've got like broken beat stuff, and then I've got sort of triplet stuff, and then I've got 4/4 stuff. So if I'm playing, I'm like, if I want to switch up the energy, go into a 4/4, I can just move to one of those patterns. I've got them organized, like the bottom row are all 4/4 and the top row are all like breakbeat basically. So I know where I'm going to be at. And because they're all completely interchangeable, they're all in the same scale, same key, the sounds are all in the same place, it's really easy to like layer them over each other, and kind of like, it doesn't matter what order I play them in necessarily. But if I was to go out and play a set and I wanted to prepare, I can copy those patterns into another bank and just sort of arrange them in an order and play through them 1 to 16. If I even get that far, like 16, I haven't even managed to play 16 in an hour, to be honest. It's quite a bit.
What percentage of how much you still make on the computer when you're in the studio, and what do you make on the electrodes directly?
So I say I'm probably 90% hardware now in the studio. The computer is editing mainly. Like I'll just record. So I'll create this live set on these machines. These aren't really the tracks that I'm working on in the studio. This is a live set, and it's kind of designed that way. And once I've sort of played with it a bit, I might like extract a few of them and record them in and then work on them. But they'll change once they're in the computer. They always do. But for like studio process, I will just record stuff in the studio. I've got another drum machine that I use. I've got a couple of synths. I've got a modular stuff, and I record a load of bits in and then spend time editing it, basically. But yeah, I'd say all of the sound creation, all of the sound generation happens in the machines, and then like the mix and tweaking it happens in the box now. So yeah.
What's the minimum set time for a live action?
Interesting. Was that Blue Party hat? Yeah, of course it was. Okay. Minimum set time for a live set. In my opinion, a DJ set should be 90 minutes, 2 hours minimum. Just because like an hour doesn't feel long enough to get into like what you want to say with it. For a live set, I think an hour, like it takes a huge amount of energy to do this. Like I've found that when I've done an hour of this, I've felt really like my energy is just done, and I just need to be like chill. Maybe I'm not experienced enough with it yet. I know people that do like 2 hours easily, but I find the exertion to be a lot more than like DJing, for example. So I think an hour is a good amount of time to sort of aim for, and sort of being kind to yourself, because if you go in at 2 hours and you're not really there yet, it can be a lot. With the Goose Fat stuff we do 2 hours now because we've been playing together for long enough, and there's 3 of us, so we're able to kind of, it keeps you going a little bit easier. You're not doing, like when you're doing a solo set, you are doing everything. You're controlling the entire sound, like every aspect of it, the drums, the bass, the synths, whatever it is you've got in your music, you're in control of it. So having to like think about all of those things at once and make the music dynamic and keep things moving and make sure that you're not just letting it roll and play out takes a lot, I think.
Can you talk a little bit about how Goose Fat came together?
Goose Fat, yeah, I've known the guys for years, Subject Zero. They came round to my house for a studio session one day just to work on a track. We ended up having a half-hour jam. They brought some machines round and we just played. And we all sort of looked at each other and was like, that was really good. We should do that again. And then from there, they just would come round like once a month. We'd set up on my dining room table and we'd just play. And at first it was like to the point we were just talking about, maybe like half an hour, and then we'd all be done. And you sit down after like, wow, that was a lot. But now we'll do 2 hours comfortably, just through playing together a lot, like a band practicing. I mean, effectively it is a band. Yeah, so that's sort of the journey really. And now we've done a couple of videos that we put up on YouTube, and we're just sort of working on more bits of content like that, and hopefully get some shows doing it soon. There won't be any Goose Fat releases currently. We're not planning on it. It's a improvised live set only group. We don't want to be that experience of getting in the studio and trying to write a song and not being able to, and doing a jam instead, made us realize like that isn't really what we're about. It's not what we're doing. So we're not really planning to like produce records. We just want to play like live improvised jams, and I don't know, maybe like an hour-long jam will be a release. Who knows? Yeah. Yeah. There are vocal samples in every track, but you can't necessarily tell that they are. So I process them quite a bit to kind of, I try and get this like weird sort of trippiness. Like I'm not really using vocal samples too much in my music anymore. I'm sort of trying to stay away from it because you can't find a vocal that no one else has used. It's impossible. So I'm trying to be unique with the sounds that I use. But like that's a vocal. And there's a bunch of them basically. You can kind of hear that one a little bit. They're super weird and like psychedelic. And they're basically voice notes that I've sent to somebody, and I've run them through like a spectral resonator and a few other effects, and then saved them as loops, put them on there and chopped them. So yeah, there's vocals. And it's me. Just not singing. I probably have. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Would I use voice notes somebody sent me? Yes. Yeah. Blue party hat usually. Yep. Okay. So software that I've used the most. I've pretty much always used Ableton Live since I started, which was years ago. I've never used anything else. I've never used Logic. I tried Fruity Loops for a little bit, like early on, but yeah, I find Ableton just a really nice workflow. It's a great program to use. And I played around with like the machine, the native instrument stuff a little bit as well, but yeah, I wasn't really that into it, to be honest. Ableton's nice because I like to edit stuff, so I just get a bunch of audio together, whether that's like samples of breaks or like stuff from the machines, and then I can spend time like really easily cutting it and pasting it and editing it. Yeah. The biggest challenges from moving to hardware, I'd say, would be technical ones. So you get a synth in front of you and you just start playing around with it, and it's fun. You can make mad sounds. It's great. Like, it's the recording process that I find the most challenging, or I have done. And like things that you don't even realize are going to be an issue or that you wouldn't account for. Like, for example, keeping everything in time with the DAW. So I bought a MIDI clock thing that sort of syncs everything. So when I press spacebar on Ableton, everything plays in time, and I can just record it. But it took a while to get that working and set up right, and understanding latency, things like that, which are just mad complicated. The biggest challenge is ground hum and noise from the studio. I still now get a lot of noise in my recordings, and it's really hard to fight it because you're just using, everything's plugged in the wall in your house. I haven't got power conditioners or anything like that because you really need to spend a lot of money on that sort of stuff. So yeah, like trying to minimize the amount of noise, and like there's things you can do, like the way that you run your cables separately. Having USBs plugged in can change it dramatically. Like I use a laptop and I have everything plugged into a sound card, and the laptop was plugged in USB, and I found that when I wasn't plugging my laptop in with its power cable and I was just using the like the docking thing, the USB docking thing, I was getting loads of noise. As soon as I plugged it in, it changed it because USB isn't grounded. So it makes a huge difference. That's definitely been the biggest challenge for me in the studio, definitely. Don't really use that many. Need to get used to that. What plugins do I use in Ableton? I don't use that many. I have a few. I don't use soft synths really. Sound toys are good. Sound toys plugins are really good for effects. Ableton stock plugins are the best in my opinion. I love them. The spectral resonator, the compressor, the delay, the reverb, the hybrid reverb they got in there. If you've got Ableton, you can do everything you need to do with the plugins they give you. If you want to get some fancy ones, yeah, Sound Toys are nice. Fab Filter, yeah, that's kind of it. I don't use a lot of plugins really. Honestly, it's very simple, very simple. Yeah, I can have a little jam. All right, cool. Yeah, I'll get into a little jam if there's nothing else. Then yeah, cool, wicked. Cool. Thank you.